soul attached to it, if you like. And the point is that it's what you program into it originally that is replicated over and over again. Once you've got that original thought process going, every time it's reinforced, it becomes stronger and stronger. And until you break that habit, which is very, very difficult to do, obviously it's just going to keep reinforcing, getting stronger and stronger.
Yeah.
So that habit is, at some point you can believe, actually this is just who I am, and it's like almost genetic, and I can't change the way that I am, which is what happens with a lot of my clients.
Yeah.
And they say, no, I can't change it, or it's like I can't teach an old dog new tricks, and it's just the way that I am. And actually it's not true. You can sort of change it, but you have to reprogram that bit that has got the old beliefs, take the old beliefs out, and then put in some better ones, and then hopefully at that point you get rid of the bad habit.
Do you always have to replace it with something else? Because that's the thing, I know that is easiest.
Well, it's not necessarily replacing it with something else. You can just stop it. So it could be something that is just no. But by the way, apologies for this right now because my mind is tired. So apologies for talking gobbledygook tonight. But
I'm only putting it in voice recording because I always struggle to remember.
Absolutely, no, it's a good way of doing it.
It's so frustrating.
No, I'm happy to talk about it. I just literally apologies if I'm just not quite as bright as I normally would be.
It'd only be for me anyway.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I mean, normally you're looking at actually changing it for a better behaviour, but sometimes it might be just something where it doesn't need to be replaced, it just literally needs to be stopped.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah. So what else was there? So behaviours, and what was the other thing, mate? Just habits and what?
Habitual behaviour, anything really in relation to anything that you find overly interesting about habits, or like specific examples. Obviously you don't need to give names or anything like that.
Yeah, no, sure.
Can range from anything to yours to people with like drug habits.
Well, I was just going to say actually, what is the difference between a habit and an addiction?
Gambling, that's one question that's occurred between me and my teacher. It was what's the difference between a habit and an obsessive compulsion sort of thing.
Okay, so
and that was what I tend to find that it's a grey area.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
Okay, right. So let's think. Right, so OCD, for example, obsessive compulsive disorder. Quite often that comes along with a feeling of, say, like bad luck, for example, or something bad's going to happen if I don't do it. And I can actually talk from example on that one. I've actually had that a little bit myself. And my mum and dad were always quite superstitious. So like they would touch wood or something like that. So now I must admit I always touch wood if it's something that, I don't want to jinx it type of thing, So I say, so touch wood, he'll be fine. Yeah,
I don't walk down the stairs at the same time. It's my only one. I'm not superstitious at all. Apart from the fact I don't walk down the same stairs as someone else.
Isn't it? It's funny, isn't it?
You can't cross the stairs. That's weird.
And yet, do you know what? It actually doesn't make jack shit difference.
No, it doesn't.
No, it's ridiculous. It's superstition and all that is the biggest pile of shit. I remember reading a book one time because I used to get quite a few bits of OCD at one point, and I remember reading this book and it was saying it's the biggest pile of rubbish, and it just basically sort of, by the time I read it I thought, God, that's absolutely brilliant. It's kind of, it makes so much sense what they're saying, and I'm just not going to do it anymore. And out of all the things, the only one I now still probably really do is like touch wood, and there's probably a few other little things. But it was all based on,
that's more good luck, luck rather than to avoid bad luck.
Yeah, but it's like, but in the absence of doing it, it would be bad luck.
I suppose, yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? So it's kind of a catch-22. So going on to, so OCD is obviously a habit, but it's one I think based around fear. If you don't do it, obviously something bad's going to happen. Another thing, it's quite funny. You go down on the Southwich Boulevard.
Think of that as a fear-based
concept.
Which would make sense.
Yeah. But it becomes so automated that you don't think of the fear. So because it's a subconscious level. So so to start with, so if someone says, "Oh, make sure you don't cross on the stairs because it's bad luck," but you wouldn't think necessarily of the fear every time you do it, because if you've done it quite a few times, it's now just, I don't cross on the stairs. It becomes just something you don't do. So it becomes a habit as well as Yeah, but it is originally based on fear. Um, One of the things I did, I'm going to give you. You asked for a specific example. This is really quite funny actually, but really bad at the same time. One of my friends, Paul, when I used to work in the bank, he's a really lovely guy, but he was a brilliant mimicker, and I can't mimic like he does.
Yeah, I can't do it for tough.
No, so I'm terrible. But he didn't mimic just like voices. He could do all that stuff as well, but he also mimicked like people's actions. So there was one guy who would go, mate, like that. So he'd start taking this like bloke off, mate, So it was quite fun. Everyone was laughing, and that probably encouraged him. And then there was another guy that did this little hop, skip, and a jump. So he'd be walking along the office, and now he'd be doing two things at the same time. Mate, and then hop, skip, and a jump, right? And then there was all these different things, and there was 3 or 4 things. Anyway, one day I'm walking down the stairs, and I said to him, I said, Paul, did you know it's bad luck if you don't touch everything around you all at the same time, right? Did you not know that? And he goes, you fucking bastard, right? Because he knew, and I knew that he was then going to have to do all this because I knew that he had this kind of obsession of taking people off. So I'm walking down the stairs doing all this. Anyway, didn't realise at the time the repercussions, because obviously I didn't know anything about hypnosis and therapy and all that stuff at the time. It was all just a bit of a laugh. And then 15 years later, I'm driving down Victoria Avenue.
Don't tell me.
Yep. And he's walking down the road doing a hop, skip, and a jump, and I can see him going, mate, he's touching everything. He's going along 15 years later. I felt terrible. And I stopped the car and went, Paul, get in the bloody car. Oh, hello, mate, how you doing? Mate, And he's literally doing that. And I
thought you said he impersonates.
Yeah, he does all that as well.
Oh, but they catch on as...
It became part of him.
That's what I was wondering, because me and Sam often take the mick out of people saying babe, and we don't often really say it in person, but like over text, you'd be like, hi babe, but it's like...
It's becoming part of you.
Yeah, which is so annoying.
Yeah, because, well, if you think about it, if you're taking the piss out of someone, it's not a good thing, is it, right? Not as in the taking the piss itself, but as in... You're taking the piss out of someone because it's a bad thing that they're doing. It's a stupid thing that they're doing. Now, you might be doing it in a funny way, but if you keep doing it because it's funny, eventually...
It doesn't get funny.
Well, no, because it becomes a part of what you do.
It's boring. You've heard
and you're doing it.
Yeah.
So the very bit that you would take the piss out of someone else on has now become a part of you. So you have to be very careful. Right. Then you've got things like...
Gambling, I'm really interested in, if you've got any for gambling.
Okay, I haven't actually had many for gambling, but I've had a couple.
They're so routine, and I've noticed, compulsive, like they're obsessed by it. Like my uncle, well, he's an alcoholic and a gambler, which like they go hand in hand, but like he cannot do anything other than just watch the TV and watch his game, sort of thing.
Okay. Okay. You could group together all the different addictions, right?
Please, by all means, that's good.
Okay, but literally they all kind of fall under the same thing, and the reasons are normally very similar. So if you think about it, right, so you've got sexual addiction, you've got obviously drug addiction, you've got alcoholism, which is an addiction, and then there's gambling, all that type of thing. There's loads and loads and loads more as well. Okay, but they are all based. These are not based on fear. These are based on normally boredom or unhappiness. And if once the worst thing you remember what we were saying when I was saying about Sam and Danny, with it, the worst thing that could have happened would have been them winning. Because in the absence, of fun or happiness, or it could be stress or something like that, they need some kind of release, or they're doing something that sparks off their interest, and if it gives them a moment's high,
it's chasing that first high.
So winning is one of the worst things. Having a fantastic high from a cocaine or a
jubilation to start with.
Yeah.
Because that's what I thought it was to do with, gambling anyway. You chase, that big win. Like, my mate won £1,500 at the casino when he walked in there with 20 quid. And that is what a gambler lives for.
Of course. But yeah, you could say they get pleasure, even when they lose, because there's always that possibility that they might win. It's that anticipation. If you think of like, so for example, sexual addiction. There was guys that I've dealt with quite a lot of people like with that type of thing. So say for example, go for a prostitute or something like that. Yeah. And they were saying, and it's funny, they nearly all say the same thing. The actual going with the prostitute is
dull.
Yeah, but the anticipation of looking for them, going to do it, driving to them, whatever it is, it's like the buzz, and that is, they all say the same thing. It's that anticipation.
It's fantasy.
Yeah.
I can't help but feel, because I've always had, like, every guy has their own thing, and I can't help but feel the scenarios are more intense in your head.
Absolutely.
It's
like reading a book compared to the film.
It's like dreaming. Dreaming is always better than life, because it's it's what you can do, whatever you want to do.
Absolutely spot on. So, but here's the thing. In every single situation, and there is no exception, none. Every time it's like paying a 50. If there was £1,000 note, I'd use £1,000 note, but it only goes up to 50. So it's like paying 50 quid to get a £5 note back. Right, the high is the equivalent of £5, but the low, which is always much lower and feels far more shit for far longer, is the equivalent of a 50. And as I say, if there was £1,000 note, I'd say I'd compare it to a £5 or to £1,000, especially over a longer period of time, because it completely fucks your life up, and that's the problem. And it's, some people are able to change those addictions, but it's not always easy.
It just makes me think that there's like a graph for this sort of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, there's a pattern, and it doesn't matter whether it's sexual addiction or whether it's drug addiction or gambling or whatever it is. There is an absolute pattern to it, and it's really, I feel genuinely really sorry for people with those things, because it's not easy. But when they're really determined, they can change it. They can change it. But then that's where the reprogramming comes in. So there comes a time when people think, right, first of all, I can stop this whenever I want, okay, and they're in denial, and then they go from, right, so think about this, right, remember the old balance thing I was telling you about, so one extreme, the other extreme, and somewhere in the middle. So so first of all, you're in denial, and you're going, I can stop this whenever I want to, so I'll keep doing it, yeah? And then all of a sudden it starts really screwing up their lives, and they're really desperately unhappy. They might lose their marriage over it, they might lose their house or whatever it is, like everything. And so they're going, right, this sucks. So if this really sucks, what do I need to do? I need to go to the opposite way. And I'm trying to think of the scenario now. Sorry, mate, apologies, my brain is so tight.
Well, giving me good ideas, like a balance. That's like graphical ideas is quite nice. This is all about like what ideas I can take, and then like a balance. That's quite nice.
Cool. So the balance is going. Oh yes, I remembered it now. Right. So one is denial and thinking I can stop whenever I want, and the other one is then all of a sudden the realization of thinking I can't stop at all. This is just me now, and I give up. I give into it because I know that I can't give up. Now, that isn't true either, but they believe it. And if you believe it, whatever you think is going to happen is likely to happen. Like, be careful what you look for, something. So at that point, they believe that they can't give up. Now, the balance is in the middle, and the middle says, this isn't going to be easy, but I can do it. And when you believe in it, again, if you really believe it's going to be easy, it's going to be as easy as it possibly can be. But at the same time, those people, they do need help, and they need to then reprogram that part of the brain, which is it's actually quite easily done especially with something called brainwork recursive therapy, which
brainwork recursive.
Brainwork recursive therapy.
Is that what we did?
Sorry, mate.
Is that what me and you did?
We did a light version of it, yeah.
Can we do some more of that, please?
Yeah, of course we can do. Yeah, no problem. And there's a guy called Terence Watts.
It does work.
It's very good.
And then, like, even I can see positives in it, and then, like you say, I think you just need to keep doing it and doing it and doing it.
Definitely. Well, the more you do it, the repetitiveness of it. And don't forget, this is the other thing, what we were saying. because like you're talking about habit and everything, and we were talking about when you're taking the mickey out or mimicking someone, when it becomes automatic, you don't think about it anymore, then it becomes a part of your programming, and therefore it becomes a part of you, essentially, even though it isn't a natural part of you, but it becomes a part of you because you're doing it. And this is why people can improve if they're acting like a numpty, and like I think I probably told you I had an uncle, he's very, very sort of like very bashfully quiet, and he decided to do amateur dramatics, and all of a sudden, like he's allowed to pretend to be something else, and over a period of time, he starts becoming really sort of like loving this time because he's allowed to pretend to be someone else. He doesn't believe for 1 second that him being on stage and being vivacious and like looking people in the eye and the communication being really good. He doesn't believe for a second that that's actually him. But after a while, he realises, especially then when his wife said to him, "Do you know what? You could be that person if you wanted to be." Because he said, "I'd love to be that person like that." Really,
like Batman's cape sort of thing.
Yeah, that's right. Your alter ego type thing, but
it becomes you.
Well, yes, but it only becomes you when you realise that if you can act it, that there's a part of you that is it because you've done it, and you can therefore be it. So therefore, it's a part of who you are potentially. And if you then keep doing that, apart from the habit of being the old person, after about 28 days, they reckon that it is to change an old habit. After that period of time, then the new way of doing it starts to become the predominant default setting, which is interesting, really. And so with my uncle, eventually he realised that his wife was right and he could change, and he just made that decision and wasn't just doing it while he was acting anymore, just did it in his personal life as well. So it is possible, but a lot of it is to do with belief. Right, this is interesting. A belief. The mind is so powerful. This is a true story. There's a guy that he was going to see his doctor. He was literally, his body was covered in warts. There wasn't one spot on his body that wasn't covered in a wart. Anyway, so this is in America. Obviously, it's all in America. They do everything bigger and better, don't they? So
they do.
We've got a few warts they're covered in. I'm like, what can I say? Right.
My dad's 6 foot. My dad's 18 foot.
Yeah, and that's just his willy.
Yeah.
Right. So this guy is going to the doctor. The doctor's treating him, and the doctor is going on a sabbatical. So he says to his colleague, "Right," he said, "George, do me a favour." He said, "Would you look after this client?" Blah 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 blah. And he said, "This patient," he said, "you'll see straight away what the problem is, and I'll leave it with you. See you in a few months' time." So the patient comes in and sees his colleague, and his colleague goes, "Oh, Struth, right, okay. Oh, that's a nasty case, right, okay." He said, "We can deal with this very quickly for you, though." However, he said, it responds brilliantly to hypnosis. We will be able to get rid of this for you just around about the time that your other doctor comes back, okay?" So he's thinking to himself, "I'm surprised actually my colleague didn't do it."
Hypnosis?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, believe it or not, they respond well to hypnosis. I've never done that one, I have to say, that's a new one on me, but yeah, apparently they respond very well to hypnosis. Anyway, so they were doing this hypnosis, and he was so vehement that it would work, that the subconscious mind of the guy, it actually stimulated his own defences and immune system to kick in and to start to get rid of these warts. And sure enough, exactly as the doctor had said, by the time the other guy came back, they had just about gone. All he had was a few scars left, and that was it. Anyway, the other doctor comes back, and his jaw is hanging around his ankles. He just cannot believe what he's seeing. And he's like, what
was he
happened?
A typical doctor, as in, like, not hypnosis, not...
Well, no, he could do hypnosis as well, but this is why his colleague couldn't understand the why he hadn't done it already. And he said, "Well, I'm surprised you didn't do it." And the other guy said, "It's not warts." And it was this very rare cancer which looks like warts.
But they're like benign tumours.
Yes. Well, they're not benign though in this case. He only had a short time to live. It was incurable. And yet
so he was dying?
He was dying.
Did he know this?
The other doctor didn't know this. So the one who went on sabbatical knew. They'd had all the tests and everything done. Anyway, to cut a long story short, the other one didn't realise, just thought it was a simple case of Watts hadn't read up all the notes enough, and just went, right, okay, we'll sort this out, no problem. And because there was no doubt in his mind, that transference of belief went into the other guy, and it cured him. But it was the transference, because the hypnosis wouldn't work. But no, he's fine. He was cured.
Of cancer?
Yeah.
See, there are stories like that. I think there was a story of, like there's one of the, I think it was a child called Fatima has been, what is it when they become a saint in the Catholic Church? Have you heard about this story?
Well, there was one
recently,
the other day, wasn't there, with the Pope? Yeah,
and it was because a family had prayed to Fatima in Brazil when they'd become...
That's my Whitbread.
Javelin. Just like praying to a javelin.
I'm surprised you knew who that was, actually, because a bit before your time. I'm impressed.
No, but she's just like the most famous javelin thrower I would know. And they prayed to her. I think it must have been for cancer or something like that, and they got cured.
Really?
Something like that. I mean, it's all hearsay, given especially that it's in like Brazil.
Yeah, it's incredible though. But it does make you wonder. I mean, there were, just to give you an idea, and this is also absolutely true. In the old days of the Druids and stuff like that, so we're talking like a long time ago.
What's the Druids?
They were sort of like warriors from sort of like 1,000+ years ago type of thing, and they'd have the clans, and sometimes because they'd have things like the witch doctors and stuff like that, which they all totally believed. And talk about words have power. They would literally throw incantations at each other, like and spells and stuff like that, so the other person could hear. And sometimes it is written that occasionally, people, the chiefs that had heard this spell being put on them and being cursed, would just literally drop dead. And that is apparently fact. That actually happens sometimes, but it's because they believed it. The transference was that they believed it so much that it then, I don't know whether they had a
the
heart
human
attack
body can't just shut. Like, that's the thing. We're always of the belief that until we get a disease, that we won't just die. But there are cases where you will just not wake up in the morning for no reason, because your body just didn't fancy waking up and you're just dead. Yeah. So it would follow suit.
It sounds insane though, doesn't it? I mean, I haven't verified it, but apparently you can look it up, and in fact, one of the books I was reading actually called. Do you want to write up for you, because you have it on the phone?
Yeah.
I really recommend a fantastic book for you to read, and it's called Word Weaving.
Is it like to do with etymology by any chance, or about the history of words?
No, it's more about what you do with the words in putting it into a certain way. To almost like cast a spell on someone, only in the way of helping them, instead of like a nasty spell sort of thing. So it's not about black magic or magic at all. It's about therapy, but it explains brilliantly, probably one of the best books of how the brain works and why we get these hang-ups and stuff like that. It's written by a guy called Trevor Sylvester. Really recommend you read that if you're interested. It's a blimmin' good book. And it's one that is both for the layman but also for the therapist as well. Honestly, it's really good.
If you're interested in politics, there's another good book. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Man Was Born Free but Found Everywhere in Chains. It was like written in the 1850s, but it is top notch. Like, seriously, it's an amazing read.
I can almost imagine by the description what that would be about. That sounds, if it is,
it's to do with politics, but it is pretty. Yeah, it is a good read.
That's a good. I love the title of that. That's a good.
You see, it doesn't roll off the tongue when you say it. But when you read it, you're like, yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
No, it
makes a whole lot of sense.
It's only about Yabig as well. It's not like a heavy read.
Gotcha. Okay.
Although it was written in the 1850s, so it's a bit like the wording's a bit.
Yeah, yay, and ye shall do this, etc., etc. So anyway, so we were talking about.
Have you got any? Yeah, you did finish that off quite nicely actually. Have you got anything to do with like the actual the workings of the brain? Is there any? Yeah,
definitely. In fact, along with brain work, recursive therapy, it does explain quite a lot. Right, okay, here's a little bit of the.
Sorry if you don't want to like.
No, it's all right. It's okay. No, it's just I hope I'm not talking gobbledygook because my brain's knackered. Okay, you have the. I can't remember exactly what it was, but you have the reptilian brain, the paleo-mammalian, and the mammalian. Right, so you've got, if you imagine, as we...
Are these all just sections of the brain?
Yes.
Or are they like psychological sections of the brain?
No. As the evolution of animals or mammals starts to progress, so if you think of like reptiles originally, so some of the earliest like animals on the planet, and their brain literally was about, all it dealt with was aggression, mating,
primal.
Very, very primal, yeah. And then as evolution continued, the next thing became the paleo-mammalian, which was the next part of the evolution of the brain, and that then included a few more things. Without going into too much detail, but it would be, rather than just sort of like, you know, mating and eating and stuff like that, it would be thinking for itself, a little bit more conscious, slightly more conscious, sort of like self-awareness maybe.
There was a,
and then,
there was a thing on Snapchat last night that it has stories come up from like actual, like it varies from Cosmopolitan, a load of rubbish, to like National Geographic, and there was a thing saying that depression is not like it is it's important, like we need depression, and which I just found.
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with we need depression. I think we need bad experiences to be able to learn.
That's where it stems from.
Right, makes sense. Yeah.
Which I didn't think about it in that respect.
I do kind of agree with that to a degree. It's like, how can you appreciate how amazing something is unless you've been through the shit in the first place? Does that kind of make sense?
And the peaks.
Exactly. To a degree, yeah. So. Finally, then you ended up with the mammalian, which in our case, if you like talk about the human brain, is the ultimate so far in evolution, where it's complete self-awareness and being able to think in sort of like, you could even sort of like think about the past.
Empathy.
You could think about all that. Yes, that's a perfect one.
That's quite a good one, because I know that Sam has been. I don't know if she's told you about it, but I wanted to use that in my research. There is to do with 4-year-olds, and they really struggle with seeing things from another 4-year-old's perspective, which is, I didn't think about it. I was like, oh my god, you're so right. If they don't even know themselves, how are they going to know what?
That's a very, very good point.
So
to be able to try and project that is quite incredible, really, isn't it? Really?
It's a massive advancement for our species, which I never even appreciated. You don't appreciate these things until you compare. You can only compare it to yourself, so you can only compare yourself to a child.
Yeah.
You just never do.
It's true. It's a good point.
I never do anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, with all this stuff? You've got strategies and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, so here's what happens, right? So you talk about the workings of it, and this is where then that's the context, but here's the practical application. There was a guy called, I think it was Benjamin Libet, and he proved that. What did he prove? Right, he proved that our brain responds to something subconsciously about 1/3 of a second before our conscious awareness is even aware that something's going on.
Is that to do with the somatic and autonomic responses?
Yes.
Yeah, we did that in biology. It's so cool.
It's amazing. Yeah. Well, you're going to know a little bit more than probably what they will now, because here's the really interesting thing. This is where the BWRT comes into it.
Which is?
Brainwork recursive therapy.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So here's the reason why that happens. You've got the neurons and the electrical, right, so let me think, right, you've got in a neuron, the way it's made up, you've got about 10,000 dendrites, and then you've got the axon and all the rest of it, and there's a little bit with the synapse and all the rest of it. Basically, the message travels, these little electrical pulses travel at something like, I think it was 100 or 200 metres a second, which sounds very fast, but actually, when you think of the network and the 50 miles odd or whatever it is of like neurons and networks and what have you, to go from the reptilian brain, because the reptilian brain is in the middle, the mammalian brain, paleomammalian brain is the next bit, and then the mammalian brain is on the outside. So the most advanced part, which is the conscious awareness, which can then logically think, is this what I need to do? Is this actually the bit that's going to work best for me? Is the bit that's furthest away from where the message is.
So you getting to bypass it.
Kind of. It's not quite that. What we're saying here is that the reptilian brain is going to be aware, so that natural gut reaction to react to whatever it is the first part that the message gets to. So your senses, the five senses, are absorbing everything around. They absorb all our information, every bit of information, okay, comes in through our five senses. That's then distributed to the parts of the brain to then decipher it. Now, that reaction is all in that reptilian part of the brain first of all. But the more complex parts are obviously further out, so it takes longer for the messages to get there. So we go into automatic mode, first of all, because that automatic response mechanism is more in the central part of the brain. And then about a third of a second later, finally it goes more out to the outer parts, which can then think about how we're going to respond, or not necessarily how we're going to respond. Is it a good idea responding this way? Does it work for us or not? But the problem is, by that time we're already in automated, or we're already in. Sorry, mate, my brain's so knackered. We're already
reflex
in.
arc.
Yeah.
Well, I know that's where, like, when you put your finger in a light, your brain isn't quick enough to respond with intelligent thought to know that that's wrong. Yes. So a reflex arc is where it's like, oh, that's going to hurt me, and we don't use our brain in that at all.
That's exactly the same principle. Yeah. And so that's the reptilian part of the brain. But I was going to say the momentum is the thing. So by the time we're consciously aware of it, if we're already in the momentum of doing what it is we automatically do in that scenario, then it's very hard to stop it, which then comes back to the addiction and stuff like that. So as soon as you've had that thought and you're going down that road of, that's it, I'm going to do that, right? But it's at a subconscious level, you're not consciously even aware of it at that point, but there's a file in your brain that says, this is what I do in that situation. It fires that up before you're consciously aware of, and then even have a chance to think of, is this a good idea? And of course, because you've committed, it's almost impossible to change it unless you reprogram what that
start rather than right.
Exactly.
I see. I've never even thought that what I did in biology was relevant to, because I've actually done about the somatic and the autonomic parts of the brain.
I can tell.
And that's, well, to be honest, it was I love nerves and like neurons and the myelin sheath, which funny enough Danny didn't really enjoy on his test, which I never thought was wholly relevant, but it's like, in terms of biologically, it's really completely relevant because
the myelin sheath actually helps the signals go through quicker. Yeah, it's very, very relevant. But yeah, it all kind of links in. It's fascinating. But you never think there's going to be a practical application for this, but there really is actually in your own development, in clients' developments and stuff, and understanding that helps you then to understand the mechanics of the brain and therefore how we can manipulate it and change it, which now they realise that they actually can. So, I mean, for example, mate, I tell you, I had a fantastic success the other day. There was a guy, again, not mentioning names because of obviously
client-patient confidentiality.
Yeah, thank you.
It's so hard to say. I'm so proud of myself.
I was impressed, mate, especially this time of night. But you're a night bird, you say you are. But this guy, he weighs, oh my God, he must be 22 stone, and no, and he was drinking 2 bottles of wine a night. Okay, a night. And has been since he was 23.
He's not even like morsel off that as well, but he's just pretty standard.
Yeah, and he's now 45, right? And he's been told that if he doesn't stop, he's going to not have long to live. But he's very successful in business and all that sort of stuff, so he's got a lot to live for. And he came to me and said, give my last chance. I've tried mine, I just can't do it. I'm not expecting miracles. I don't think it'll work, but I would love to give it a try. So you've been recommended to me, so I went, right, okay. And now the first thing, we are going to get you sorted out. Okay, now, a lot of therapists will not want to say it, because if you say that, yes, but a lot of people are too frightened of committing, because if I commit to that and I say we are going to get you sorted out, I might be liable because you guaranteed me that you were going to get me sorted out. Well, I didn't say guarantee, we just say we're going to get you sorted out. Right, we're definitely going to get you sorted out. And that belief straight away is there. So straight away, if their belief is there, it literally does have a fantastic effect on the brain, as in it starts to be, the belief.
It's just all these key words that you keep saying that are just like lovely. That's what I tend to notice in art. Like you just pick keywords, pick key bits.
Yeah.
Which are,
It's key. And this is why, mate, right, remind me to come back to that other guy in a minute, because it's very important. But this is why, when I think of the condition that I've had, and I know I still get a bit of pain, you know, stuff like that. But when I think that doctor said to me, because I was going to talk about bedside manner, when I think that bedside manner that doctors have is so important, and that they should be using positive language and giving you hope, because as soon as they turn around and they say, you're going to feel suicidal with this, which is actually what the woman said to me. I cannot believe she said that. It's terrible. The doctor. And she said to me, you will feel suicidal with this. She said, and unfortunately, you're never going to feel young again, and you will have this till your dying day. That's basically her almost word for word.
So that's the problem with doctors. They think in a doctor manner, which they sort of...
Exactly.
I was watching another thing on it. They sort of have to, so in order to detach themselves from the situation, as otherwise they become more depressive than anyone could ever imagine.
Which is fair enough, but imagine, wouldn't it be
better?
You don't want to hear that.
You don't want to hear that.
Not only that, wouldn't it be better?
A nurse, just get a nurse to say it. Be positive.
It does, but it doesn't. Right. If someone says, if you know that person is going to die in a few days' time, and the person wants an honest prognosis, then it's about bedside manner, saying, look, you know, I'm really sorry. I know it must be really hard for you, but it isn't in a good situation at the moment, I'm afraid. And, you know, if you're asking, I would give it a couple of days, but, you know, we can make sure you're comfortable and all this sort of stuff. You know, there's ways of saying something, right? But in any situation where it's not life-threatening or whatever, but it could be a psychological real problem, like because it's going to be really depressing what you've got, it's very, very important to give a best case scenario, because the psychosomatic part of the brain is going to activate or not activate, as the case might be. In fact, you get the opposite part of the brain working where it actually works against you. And you often get a lot of people, as soon as they find out they've got cancer, they give up the ghost straight away and they're dead very, very quickly. Some of them, if they're of a negative way of thinking, which comes back to that kind of incantations again that the Druids were doing. Words and thoughts and beliefs carry power. Anyway, going back to this thing with my other client. So he comes along and said to him, right, we're going to get this sorted out. You will stop drinking and we're going to get you to lose that weight. So he's going, well, do you really reckon you could? I went, I know I can. And I do know, because now I know, because I know of the results that he gets. So I know in 90% of cases I can. I could tell because of his personality type. He was quite a warrior personality. I could tell that he was going to be someone who would kick his own butt as well, if he only had the right tools to be able to do it. So I was very, very confident. And literally, and he's tried everything else. He's tried so many different things. He came away from there and he went, I don't know why I feel different, but the proof will be later on when I go down the bar tonight, because all my mates go down the bar.
Yeah. And
he comes back next week and he went, he actually swore, he went, what the fuck have you done to me? And I went, what's happened? He said, I can't believe this. I am now a non-drinker. I don't drink anymore. And he said, and I don't know how I know, but I just know I will never touch another drop of alcohol in my life.
He wasn't lying then?
No, he was being 100% true. And I know because he's recommended to someone else, and they've said, what have you done to, I nearly said his name there, what have you done to blah, 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 because you've just completely transformed him. And then we started doing the weight thing. And
to lose the weight?
Yeah, he's losing on average about £8 a week, which is
that
ridiculous.
Size, it's
not
about
right, amount of weight though, isn't it? £8 a week.
Yeah.
So that's about a stone every 2 weeks.
I was going to say, if that's someone lighter, you'd be worried.
Yes.
Is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, that I appreciate 100% what you're saying is true. Yeah, I mean, no doubt it will slow down because obviously as he starts to get lighter, but he's doing phenomenal.
It seems a lot of self-reliance as well, which I seem to notice with like breaking habits or. Well, obviously with habits, no one else does them for you.
Well, this
only
is very
you can
true.
carry out your habit, but only you can break it at the same time.
Very true, but it is definitely a state of mind and that belief. I mean, in fairness, I need to do some work on it myself. That's the ironical thing. I wish one of my mates, because you can do self-hypnosis, but I always get bored with it. I need someone else to do it for me. I can do it for someone else, but one of my mates keeps saying, "Oh, come round, I'll do it for you." Sorry, mate.
Communication is helpful. I tend to find
when
doing anything. Like when you've done it with me, I could just imagine if I was telling myself what to do, I'd be like, "Oh yeah, all right." But like the fact that you've got a bit of kit, like takes two to tango sort of thing.
Absolutely, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, no, I agree with that. Totally agree. Yeah, it's an amazing thing, the mind, mate. Absolutely bloody amazing. Anything else particularly that you wanted to know?
Maybe one last great example of habits. If not, then don't worry. But other than
one last great example of habits.
Something that I could like use as like a direct anything.
Okay, let me think for a
second. Or like a habit that you have.
Oh, get the old skeletons out of the closet.
Hiding chocolate.
That's a good one, actually. Okay, my one would be going to bed early and stuff like that.
They're really hard to pinpoint as well, which I've noticed, obviously, because they're subconscious.
Yeah, definitely.
Like people are like, oh, and then I'm just like, you walk like this, Helga and Max. You walk on your feet, and they walk like that, and they're like, you didn't write it down because you don't notice it.
I like it.
It's only recently that I've noticed all my habits, and I'm just like...
Yeah, well, it's good, though, that you're noticing them. That's really, really good. And this is also where, I mean...
Your life, I've just read up that apparently your life is dictated by, it's 40% habits, which is unsurprising. I had that theory that...
If you think about it, sorry, mate, to interrupt you, we wouldn't be successful as a species if we didn't have habits.
That's what that said, you wouldn't be able to tie your shoelaces. Like, it was so true.
I mean, you think the thing that sets us apart from other animals, I mean, there are some other animals that do have this ability as well, but not to the same degree perhaps. But if you had to relearn everything every time you did it, we'd still be trying to figure out how to open up a crisp packet. It's just every time you can build on a previous experience. But think about this one, this is important.
Oh, mate, you just give me like an awesome idea.
Okay.
Like, I'd love to, the whole idea of putting... It sounds so odd, and it wouldn't sound... Because I love interactive art. I love it where it really stresses me out when you go to a gallery and you can't touch it. I'm just like, oh, come on, let me touch it. But I'd love to just have lots and lots cans of baked beans, or cans of anything, seeing as though what Marianne said earlier. It's the art behind the subconscious. That's probably essentially what my whole... where it's led up to anyway.
Okay.
So why not just have just an area where you can just open up cans of baked beans? It's so... It might sound ridiculous, but it'd get you thinking. Because that's the whole point of contemporary art. What is the thought process behind it? Like, where does that stem from?
You've just got a new idea.
It's a bit Andy Warhol, but like
It's okay. It's original, isn't it?
It sounds bonkers. It's so frustrating because at the same time, I love Renaissance art. I love like painting like pretty pictures. I love like when I'm bored. Like today, I was so bored. I was just like, "Oh, sod this! I'm just going to paint." But
no, I understand. Yeah, I mean, what's interesting at the moment is that you're exploring a whole new area of art, and that keeps it exciting and interesting. But it'll be interesting to see what you finally sort of settle on, what you do with it in your career and stuff like that. It's going to be interesting.
I'm on foundation, which the thing I sort of went with it because the whole idea is it's experimentation. So I thought if I'm doing this, I might as well go gung ho with it and just like do what they say, just try anything.
Yeah.
So
that's good. That's really good that you're doing that. Now this bit's really important. This bit will probably really help you in your life to understand this. One of the biggest problems that I have when I relationship counselling is that people come here.
This is a big habit of mine, by the way.
What's that?
This.
What, doing that thing with you?
I hit my head all the time. I did a response to this actually. I managed to. I filled a box full of wax so people can scratch it.
Okay.
I like to try and mimic the idea. I do it all the time.
Okay, we'll deal with it. Okay, we will deal with it, and we can sort that one out. But this bit is really important. Okay, this bit's really important because this will have an effect for you definitely in your life. In fact, for nearly everyone in their relationships. If you're aware of it, it can save a relationship. Nearly everyone that comes to see me in the relationship counselling side of things, most of them believe that they're right. Okay, and you know those two particular people that where they get very loud sometimes. Yeah.
That book that I told you about highlights this. Is
okay.
You like it?
What happens is she 100% believes that she's right.
Mm-hmm.
He 100% believes that she's right. But they believe there's only one truth, and therefore one of them's lying. But they're not. In this, sometimes people lie. Sometimes people lie intentionally. In this particular case, the issue is that she has had a set of beliefs instilled into her at a source, which was in her upbringing, by very different parents compared to the parents of him. And so his belief and his version and his context of how he sees something is very different to how she sees it. So they're both telling the truth. She is more right than he is, in my opinion, but then that's my context as well. So you have to take that into context.
Gathered and what Marianne said the other day.
Yeah. You can the walls are thin. You can hear certain stuff, can't you? And but it's sad because he's getting more and more frustrated and angry and upset because he feels
that he's been proven wrong.
Well, no, because he doesn't think he is wrong. But although we did have a breakthrough, in fact, he wasn't frustrated with it. He was actually relieved this time when we were able to show him and virtually prove him with like double binds and stuff that where he could for the first time realise that actually, maybe I am wrong. And part of that understanding, or part of that breakthrough, was understanding the way the brain works, that it is possible that they are both telling the truth, but they just see it differently. So here's the thing, right?
2 seconds, go on.
Okay. Let me just think about this for a second. Right, I've just got to get my own brain sorted out.
No, go on, you get. Yeah, I need it right. 2 seconds. Fire away whenever you're ready. I'm listening.
No worries. So, if you bear in mind statistically that we only actually absorb about 40. Oh, sorry, mate.
Sorry.
Oh God, about 40% of what we see.
Which is a lot more than other animals. Well, apart from birds. Birds are weird.
Yeah.
Birds can see in UV, which is just, oh mate, I'd love that.
Oh, I know, amazing. Yeah, the ultraviolet, when they follow the moles.
Yeah,
and
they
stuff
can
like
see
that,
their footprints, and that's like, imagine
it's
seeing
incredible.
my footprint from like 300 foot up.
I know, see all the ultraviolet, amazing. It's from the urine, I think, as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, but we were saying that about 40% is absorbed, and in the other 60%, because you don't go around thinking I only know 40% when you look at a situation. You feel like you know, unless you really haven't come across a situation before, or you're coming unstuck because of the lack of knowledge. Then obviously that then throws up the fact that we don't necessarily know what we're talking about. But in most things, right, bear with me for a second. 40% we know, the other 60% is, what do we do with that? What do we do now? So what it does, it takes the current situation and says, okay, is there any similar files in my subconscious mind, in all those billions of files of experience that I've got, anything that's similar? And so it goes all in a split second because the brain is so phenomenal. And it will find the nearest match if there is anything that's ever happened similar to it, right? It might be slightly different, but similar. And in 95% of the cases, if it is a similar situation, then that 60% that you haven't learned this time or haven't absorbed this time will be covered by previous experiences, and we adopt what happened in the previous experience and slot that into the 60% that we didn't understand this time. So in our conscious mind, all we know is we understand it.
So do we just assume things?
Yes, and we think it's fact, and it isn't. Now, by luck...
Is that where you're saying he...
Yes,
is right?
He assumes stuff. So she was doing, like, he went...
She's seeing the 60% almost, and he's just like...
Well, no, he said, you do this, and then you do that.
Oh,
and he's going, see, so you're doing... And she's going, oh my God, no, I don't do that, and I don't do that. Yes, you do, because you did X, Y, Z as well. She said, no, that was when you were having a go at me, and you told me I was thinking X, Y, Z. And then in your mind, that became fact.
Oh, so many people do that. It stresses me out.
Isn't it annoying?
Oh,
yeah.
Like because they've voiced it themselves, they all of a sudden think that
they're guilty of it.
Yes,
and so they think that is something that they do. And then, based on that previous assumption that they, in their mind, think is now fact that they did X, Y, Z, they then judge them on that thing that came from their brain, not theirs. And judge them that they're going to do the same thing again next time. So they assume that they've done the same thing next time. Yes.
See, my mate has an awful habit of like exaggerating to an extent, lying, but he does it in a nice way. Like when he was describing China, like when he went to China, you can tell when someone's lying because there's lots of connectives, lots of ums, ands, and like if you knew the story, it'd be a bit more fluent.
I understand. And their lips move as well.
Then all of a sudden. All of a sudden, he actually thinks that it's happened.
Yeah, that's it.
It's so frustrating because it's like...
And trying to convince them otherwise.
Pardon?
Trying to convince them otherwise, forget it.
Like, I even said to my college friend, like, would you call bullshit on him? He's like, no, he's your mate. It's not... I know my best mate. It's not coming from a bad place.
Yeah. Of course, he's got a good heart, I'm sure.
No, it's the same thing, yeah. It's just like, no, that's not true. I know you wouldn't have run out of your room naked and barged down the door and everyone's there and like you've managed to bullshit your way out of it. Like, you're in a school, mate. What are you talking about?
But you see what's happened now if you add on to that, because obviously he does it more than most people, would you say?
Yeah, him and him there and... Wheel over the road.
That's my dad, you point there.
No, my husband does it. Funny enough, they're my two mates are within about 300 metres of each other and they both do it more than any others.
Right. So the interesting thing is that there are
but
some people...
Lovely.
Oh, I know. I've heard you talk about Ralston and that.
It's like, what?
But you know that there... So you've identified that some people do it more than others.
I'll take it with a pinch of salt.
So what's happening, a couple of times he's done it, and he's actually got into the habit because that in itself, that habit has become a part of a file that it's okay to do this. In fact, it's advantageous to do this, to make assumptions, but it's not, of course. But in their minds, they've got files that say, yes, it is. So they've set a precedent and then they've reinforced that by doing it again. And it's now become habit. Right, but of course that's a very detrimental habit for them to do.
Lying is a habit.
Yes, but not intentionally.
No, yeah.
But imagine what that's going to do in their relationships. That's going to really fuck their relationships up. Massive problem. And that's what this guy was doing here. So he's got the same issue. Now...
Oh yeah, bring it back around.
Okay, so thinking about this again now, last bit on this is... Because everybody, they might do it more than most, but everybody does it.
I'm aware, yeah.
Because we can only absorb, but we can only absorb 40% roughly of anything going on at any one time, and the other 60% is filled in by previous scenarios and our experiences of them. So we slot in what we anticipate and assume would have happened because it's similar. So why would it not be the same this time? But of course, not every situation is the same. So probably 5, maybe 10% of times it is different, and so therefore our truth is not actually fact. And that's the thing. So we're telling the truth, but we might not be right. But we think if it's true, it's right. Yes, but they're stating it as fact.
We're going to think what we're saying is right.
Exactly, but once they get their head around their arse and they realise that actually you've been stating
Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares.
Same thing. He's in complete denial, isn't he? Yeah. Until all of a sudden that switch is flicked. Now this is what we had. You know, I said we had the breakthrough, right? And they got it all of a sudden because I said when you started coming here, you believed that your truth was fact, and now you understand that your truth is just your context and your belief of what you think is true, but it might not be factual. I said that's the same for all of us. So I said, you know, you can only check that out by not assuming anything, and sometimes by, for example, taping something. So I actually recommended to them that they actually tape some calls.
That's good.
Yeah, and like, you know, when they're having a conversation, tape it. Yeah, exactly. I said, because then when you go back and listen to it again, now your conscious awareness is also listening, and so it's very aware, because this is now selecting a specific thing. So it can definitely be one of the 5 things out of 2 million that we're saying, yes, I need to be aware of it.
So cool.
Oh yeah, that's great, isn't it?
It's
I know.
So cool.
I'm so lucky with that.
Yeah.
I can't believe my mate, my cousin did that. Anyway, so he was going, that actually makes sense, and all of a sudden he started to realise. So it all kind of, it does all kind of fit in together, doesn't it? Just one thing on this. Have you seen this as well? Okay. Okay, Google.
That's a Google Watch.
Send a text to Harvey.
Sam was saying, although you did send 3 messages in a row.
Harvey. Hello, mate. Harvey Turner. There you go. Sending.
No way. Has it actually done it?
Should do. Think you've done it?
Yeah. That's it. Oh my god, we've been talking for like an hour.
How crazy is that? That's just talking to my fucking watch.
I was going to say, yeah, that is one of me positives actually. I don't know, I think it's branched off from my whole theory. You're allowed a first impression of someone, but you can't, I can't remember, but yeah, I have a mentality or a mantra that you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but Absolutely. You can have a first impression. If someone's a dick the first time you meet them, you're allowed to think they're a dick, but don't think that is who they are.
That guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was worn down by stress and everything else that had been building up, and he was acting like an arsehole. He was being horrible to his son, he was being horrible to his wife, he was being horrible to the customers, and he was in complete denial. And yet, ultimately,
he's a nice guy.
He was a lovely guy.
That's led me to be able to. I love being proven wrong by someone's personality. I don't know why. I've had it for like the last 6 years. It's only about 6 years. As before that, I don't know if I had a concept of it, or if I was just I was like, all right. But like, there are so many people that I thought, you're such a knob. But then they prove me wrong. Oh, that feels so good. Like you get satisfaction. Well, I get satisfaction.
It's a nice feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know.
The problem is when it's the other way around. When you think someone's really nice and they turn out to be an arsehole.
That's happened before. Like, it was weird. This guy I knew was a knob. Proved me wrong, and all of a sudden proved me right again a year later. I was like, why'd you do that? Like, you're all right.
Oh dear. I think actually one thing that is very useful. Funny, if I'm still learning this lesson, we learn all the way through our lives, don't we? And the day we stop learning is the day they carry away
in
the
the box.
box.
With education, I'm like, what are you talking about? It's the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, without that, what's the point?
Yeah.
But I had a difficult situation the other day actually. Well, it wasn't difficult. I think I handled it okay. But this guy, he's been a friend of mine for literally 30 years. He started work roughly the same time I did, and we became good friends. But he's incredibly intelligent, right? And his word power is phenomenal. But his upbringing was very much, his father was an absolute a-hole, and his brother, one of them ended up in prison, and you know, they were a very rough family.
Yeah.
And he's the weakling, if you like, of the family. Well, trust me, he's quite a warrior in himself, so you can imagine what the others are like if he's the weakling. So he basically, to survive, it turns out, he says, in my family, to survive, you could show no weakness, and everything was a competition, and it was always a case of putting everyone else down so that you would be elevated, right? He said, I normally ended up at the bottom, but because it was like that all the time, he's become pretty good in his own right. But anyway, it was little things, and he kept doing this to me, and he kept putting me down and saying things that were really pissing me off, actually. And okay, I'm an emotional person. reasonably sensitive, but I call that emotional intelligence, I think,
Yeah.
to a degree. You've just got to be careful as an emotional person. You don't become paranoid or take things too far. You've got to be careful. That's the one downside. But I'd rather be emotionally intelligent than
cold.
Cold, absolutely.
So when you have no friends, you end up with no friends.
Yeah, well, exactly. This is the situation with my friend Paul. And it turns out later on he said he'd lost nearly all his friends and he couldn't figure out why. So anyway, he comes through on the phone and he's doing this again, and I've gone, right, stop there, enough. And he's going on and on. I went, Paul, shut up and just bloody listen to me for a second, right? I said, I've had enough. I said, I'm right up to there with you at the moment. I said, you're really fucking me off. And then I explained to him why. But I had to kind of shock him into actually shutting up for 1 minute to get a word in edgewise, because his word power is quite good as well. And I just said to him, right, and I just laid it thick on the line. I said, I will hazard a guess. I said, I bet you do not have many friends. And that really kind of shut him up. And he's going, what makes you say that? I said, because you're just about to lose another one. I said, I'm serious. I said, any more of this shit, and I don't want to be your mate anymore. I said, I don't need this. I don't need it. I said, because you actually upset me. You get to the point where I'm actually upset and it's playing on my mind. And I said, probably because I actually do care about you. I said, but it's disappointing me. So, and anyway, so he was basically saying, like, give me an example. So I gave him loads of examples. He was like,
reading off a list.
Yeah, basically. And he went, oh my God. He said, I'm sitting here and I am bright red. And he said, I just feel terrible. I am so sorry. And that took the wind out of my sails. And then I went, I really appreciate the way you're taking it. I said,
It's not overly his fault.
No, that's the thing. That was my learning.
That's the word I was looking for.
Conditioning.
It's all conditioning.
But because I was too close to the woods to see the trees, because it was personal to me. See, if that had been a client, I'd have seen it immediately.
Yeah.
But because I was in it, feeling it, I couldn't see it for it to start with. I'm just thinking, you arsehole. But then immediately that, I could stand back from it and look at it, exactly what you said there, I'm thinking, I straight away started feeling sorry for him. And then he explained about his, we were talking about his family and stuff, and I thought, yeah, it makes sense.
With her relationship with respect to that. Because I think I've told you before, but I never want to use it. Like when she just hacks me off, and I'm always trying to be nice. Like even when we're in an argument, I always put a kiss at the end of things because I want to soften. I'm quite cold in some respects, but like I always want a relationship with my mum. She's better than my dad, so I need something.
Definitely,
but I can never bring up the fact that why do you think you're alone? Like,
why do you think you're alone? What, her?
Yeah, why do you think that you've got?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Why is that?
Okay.
I know, because but then again, I can't really blame her because my nan was a bit of a knob. Like, well,
so
I like my nan, but she was a knob. But she looked after my auntie more. Yeah, no, completely. But
so your mum, think about it. So she looked up. Right, this is interesting, right? So even just on those few words.
17. That's mental.
Right. So those few words, right? Well, think about it. Those few words, right then. Think about. She loved, effectively what you're saying is she loved, or she feels, your mum feels that her mum loved her sister more.
She did. There was no, feels it was.
Right. So, and if that was the case, that is going to frigging hurt. So, why do you think your mum is so successful?
So close to her since my sister, my auntie died, which is, I suppose it would happen.
Close with her mum?
Yeah.
Because now all of a sudden, in the absence of her, now the mum's got to lynch onto her daughter.
Although
obviously your mum.
It's nice for, like, she also wants to lynch onto my mum, or she feels like she's lost her.
It makes perfect sense. Yeah. Okay, but think about this. Why do you think your mum is so driven?
She's like, she feels alone. I feel like, I don't know.
She's trying to prove. She's trying to prove that she's worthy. And, and I feel so sorry for your mum, actually, just hearing that, because that is one of the hardest things to cope with, when you feel that someone who was in an equal position was loved more, then that makes you feel pretty shit as a person. There's
no but. The frustrating thing is, I feel like in her head, like every parent's head, they'll want to be like, I want to give my kid a better childhood than I had. But in so doing, she overlays or portrays, represents what she sort of had at the same time.
Okay.
She used to be so loving, but anymore, like at the moment, I don't actually get a lot of love. Not in that I'm seeking like attention.
No.
But it's just like I don't actually like.
Okay.
I wouldn't mind a hug sometimes,
Okay.
but like she doesn't give off any signals or like try. Like I'll ask how's your day, even if we're in how's your day, how's work. So don't like talk to me like that if we're in an argument. It's just, oh my god, I'm not even going to try.
Do you know the really frustrating thing here?
Like, it's so not obvious, but it's like I can see why.
I know.
Like,
Do you know the really frustrating thing? And this wouldn't be probably appropriate. It wouldn't be appropriate. But the really frustrating thing is here. And please don't say it to your mum.
No. To be honest, I try and keep conversations away from.
I reckon that I could sort your mum out in a very short time.
She wants a counsellor. Well, she's trying to get one off the NHS.
Good.
That's for her.
It needs to be right now. I say good. No, it's not good.
But it is
it's
good.
down to the individual.
I want her to be happy. Like, at the end of the day, that's all I want her to be.
No, but I don't mean it's not good that she's sorry, mate. I don't mean it's not good that she's trying to find a counsellor. What I mean is, the SEPT, like the ones from NHS, are normally SEPT, and most of them are crap. That's the problem. She needs to go to see. I mean, if she's just lucky, because I guess it is down to the individual at the end of the day. If you're just lucky enough to have a good one, but I get so many people that come from SEPT and then come see me because it's the National Health Service.
There's one, I think it's
counselling service.
There's one in town. That's where their headquarters is. I don't know if it is to do with the NHS or I don't know. Their headquarters for Essex happen to be in Southend Town, so I don't know if it is that.
Okay. Well, if it is the NHS one, you get 6 sessions and then that's it. And so you can be halfway through
6
therapy.
sessions and that's it.
And that's it. Because they can't afford any more. So that's not the individual therapist's fault, but it's the system because of the lack of money. So even that in itself fucks up a lot of therapy. I mean, if I think about it,
halfway through therapy, it's worse than like.
Oh, it's worse. It's opening up Pandora's box and they're not closing it again. Like it's and not dealing with it. So you're highlighting all your problems, and then suddenly you're aware of it. No solution. So it can actually make it worse in some situations. But no, it's not a good situation. But anyway, if I was her, your mental health is equally to me as important, equally as important as any physical.
50-50. Yeah, I'd say that as well.
Yeah, if you're not mentally happy, people don't want to be here, basically. So
if you're not mentally happy, you won't be physically happy.
Absolutely, well, yeah, because the two are completely linked in again as well. Very true.
So bring it back round again.
Yeah, absolutely. So if someone said to your mum, it'll cost you £10,000, right, to be truly happy, she'd go. Even though she might not have it, she'd sell a car, she'd do whatever to be truly happy, because without happiness, what's the point? But 99.9% of people wouldn't believe that it's truly fixable. They'll try it if the price is right, but they don't really, they're not holding it 100% hope that actually it's going to sort them out. They just hope. There's just hope that it will. Otherwise, they've done it ages ago. But
I don't feel like she has much hope. I feel like she's just routine. She's not hope, she's routine.
Right.
Which is just, I look at her and sometimes I'm just like, no.
So
no
just,
thanks.
alright, just think about this for a second then, right? So your mum, you're right talking about
I'm completely, that's the thing, that's what you were saying earlier. Like, it's what, like, conditioning what you used to, like your upbringing. But I'm so much more liberal than her, whereas she's such a stiff.
It's also like the difference in the times as well that you see. I mean, her mum, and don't forget, although you might feel that your mum, is difficult sometimes, at the same time,
her mum was so
much
solid with my nan. Like, I love my nan, but she was long.
Now, and don't forget, your nan has probably also mellowed. When your nan was your mum's age, she was probably twice as bad as what she is now.
The irony is, my nan's mum, like my great nan, as in my mum's nan, basically looked after my mum, and like she adored the girl, and she was actually meant to be awesome. Right. I know she was, because her sister, like my great aunt, Sam's went to her funeral.
Okay.
The greatest member of my family by far.
Really?
So I just don't know where my nan got it from.
Well, it's something unfortunately we'll probably never know, but taking just the last 2 generations, though, because that is an interesting point you raised, but take the last 2 generations. So your mum has not filtered it, reduced the the intensity of what her nan gave to her, and she's reduced it. So she's giving you, and she sees it probably as, I'm giving him a 10 times better life than what I ever had, and yet he's not happy with me, and that makes her, so it's another rejection that she feels, and I know she's wrong on this, but she feels you're rejecting her in some ways or disrespecting her in some ways. And if you think how that would make her feel, because you're only doing that because you're frustrated, because you're seeing how other people probably do things, and
it's more what you were talking about, that couple, like she just doesn't see she only sees the negatives, never sease the positives of our relationship.
I get you,
like,
but
you never do anything for me. I was just like, what are you talking about? Anything you ask, I do. Water the plants. Oh no, I don't have to. Yeah, water the plants. All right.
But there's certain things you've told me where she will see it as you being disrespectful to her.
Yeah.
There's things, aren't there, where she feels that, even though you're not.
Sometimes they might be. I wouldn't. I'll hold my hand. I'm not a saint.
No, of course not. There's going to be things you're going to get wrong. But generally speaking, though, she'll see it sometimes as something that you're doing that's like disrespectful, and then that will really upset her. Now, here's the thing, mate. Her response to that is going to be far more extreme than someone who has been brought up believing that they're in control of their lives and that they're really loved. Because your mum is rejected by her own mum. Yeah. She is learning bad lessons as to how life is, which is really crap from your grandma to do. And so your poor mum is being conditioned by that. She has no choice over that. So the bad habits there, it's very difficult for her to change. Because I met your mum, and the general feel was really nice. But obviously got some really difficult things for her to deal with there. Then she gets away at 17 because she can't wait to get away from that. Thinks everything's going to be fine.
That's worse.
This is what I'm coming to. So don't forget. Right, think about this in its entirety. Your mum leaves home, then feels full of hope again, but she's vulnerable because she's damaged because of what your nan has done to her. And when you're damaged, it's like you're bleeding in the water. What do you attract when you're bleeding in the water?
Yeah.
What do you attract?
You attract like sharks. Yeah.
So your dad comes along and sees your mum is vulnerable. Don't forget, however, although he was a shark to a degree, treated her very badly, you can also take a whole separate project and look at your dad and work out why he is the way he is. And actually, if you understood that, maybe you'd actually have empathy for him as well. Yeah, I know you might find that hard to believe, but you might do.
Like he'd probably be one of your examples that you would actually be like. He's not as bad as some examples that you like, casebook, textbook examples. But in terms of what you would experience, he's probably one of the worst people you would come across, because what he's been saying to my nan, I will never forgive him for. Because don't come and tell me like, how you doing, Harv, and then wish my nan with MS to get cancer and die, because I really don't appreciate that, because that is not on. Like when he did that the other day, I was not like.
That's terrible.
I'm sorry.
And that's when you talk about your nan, your mum's mum.
He just gives my granddad. Yeah, no, my
So his mum.
Yeah, he gives and he gives my granddad abuse, and like.
Let me ask you.
Granddad's a trooper. He's so cool.
So your nan is a really nice lady, yeah.
Oh, she's loopy now. Like,
but she was a nice lady though, yeah.
Apparently she was always a bit bitchy, but like you can like that. So's my auntie, like you can tell. But like she's a nice person at heart.
Okay.
My granddad, hot gold, like no.
Okay.
Like,
what I would say, you might be really surprised if you knew. Right, do me a favour, right? We've got to park that one for 2 seconds.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Otherwise, it's okay. Otherwise, we'll lose the bit what we're doing about your mum first. But no, it's no good. Let it out.
This has got off topic.